Sometimes wants can coincide with needs. That's very often not the case on your planet. Wanting can sometimes simply be the negative ego thinking it needs something to be happy when in fact it has nothing to do with what it needs. So watch the wanting, just be aware of that, and also understand that wanting is its own state. Wanting is not having. So the more you want, the more you remain in a state of wanting, not having. That's its own reality vibration. But if you know you always get what you need, the question is, why really would you want anything other than what you truly need to be yourself? You know, when we talk about the idea of acting on your passion, we don't mean you act on your passion to get things. You act on your passion for its own sake, not for anything you think it will bring you. But when you act on your passion for its own sake, you will always attract what you need to be able to continue to do so and expand your ability to do so. That's just par for the course. But you won't know that until you're there, because you won't know what you need for the next level until you actually move to the next level.
Spread love, man.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to try to figure out, how to find your path in life, but maybe not in the way you usually hear about it.
Right.
So we're diving into this super interesting conversation with Bashar, channeled by DARRYL ANKA.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, Bashar says something pretty wild, like, what if chasing after all these goals we have isn't really the key to feeling, happy?
That's a good question, right? Like, what if it's more about just, trusting what we're passionate about and letting go of trying to control everything that happens?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to dig into this whole thing.
Yeah, it definitely challenges a lot of what we, usually think about success and all that. Bashar's saying is that a lot of times we mix up what we want with what we actually need.
Okay.
And those wants often come from, our ego, wanting people to see us a certain way instead of what truly makes us feel good inside.
So how can we tell if it's a want or a need? Because sometimes they feel like the same thing, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. It's not always easy to separate those two things, especially when, society's telling us to do this or that, or even when we're just not feeling confident.
Yeah.
One way to think about it is this. Wants tend to be about things outside of us, stuff like money, being popular or getting recognition. But needs, those are more about how we feel inside, like happy, connected to something bigger, and in tune with why we're here.
Okay, yeah, I see the difference. But how does this whole wants versus needs thing actually show up in our lives, in real life?
Okay, so Bashar gives this great example. Think about someone who loves playing soccer. They're so good they could even play in college, maybe even professionally.
Yeah.
But they end up choosing going to school and getting a job that feels safe, because that's what they think they should do.
Right.
And it sounds like a smart move at first, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. We've all heard that advice, right? Choose the safe path, get that steady job, and then maybe do what you love later.
Yeah, exactly. But Bashar's saying that even though it makes sense, that decision, it wasn't actually coming from the person's real passion.
Right.
It was more about being afraid of, not having enough money or reaching a certain level of success.
So it was like fear was disguised as being practical.
Exactly. And by choosing from that fear, that person might have missed out on opportunities that could have brought them, both happiness and success,
Wow.
What if playing soccer, following that passion, could have led them to some cool career they never expected, or even financial abundance?
That's a really interesting point, and I bet a lot of people listening can relate to making choices because they're scared, thinking they need certain things to feel secure or happy, even if it means not doing what they truly love.
Oh, it happens all the time. And here's the thing, even if you get those things you were aiming for out of fear, they might not even make you feel as good as you thought they would. Because deep down, you had to give up a part of yourself to get them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And didn't Bashar say something really powerful about this? Something about, if we're meant to be where we are now, our passion would have, happily led us there.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay.
What Bashar's saying is that if you're really on the right path for you, the journey should feel good, It should be enjoyable and fulfilling, not a constant struggle or a bunch of compromises.
That makes sense. Okay, so if we are making choices based on fear and feeling stuck because of it, how do we start to change things?
Right.
Like, do we have to make these huge dramatic changes to get back on the right track?
Not necessarily. Bashar actually says you don't need these like grand gestures or total life makeovers to follow your passion. It's more about those small choices you make every day, the ones that feel good.
Yeah.
Choosing what excites you, even a little bit, can really add up over time.
So instead of thinking I have to quit my job and become a musician, it's more like, how can I bring music into my life right now? Like maybe take a class or join a band.
Exactly. It's about those little steps that just feel good and trusting that they'll eventually lead you to a more fulfilling life.
Got it.
And here's where Bashar's view on goals gets really interesting. They say that once you've tapped into that excitement of reaching a goal, you should actually let go of it.
Wait, let go of the goal. I thought the whole point was to work towards it and achieve it.
Yeah, but holding on to that specific outcome too tightly, it can actually limit you.
Huh.
By visualizing the goal, you're already putting out that energy, that feeling of getting it. But once you feel that excitement, letting go of how it's going to happen can open you up to things you might never have thought of.
So it's like we're trusting that there might be an even better way to get what we want, even if it doesn't look like what we originally pictured.
Precisely. It's about shifting from trying to control everything to just allowing and trusting.
That's a pretty big shift in thinking, especially since we're always told to go after what you want and never give up.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how often we might be holding ourselves back by clinging too tightly to a specific outcome.
Yeah, it really is a different way to think about goals.
Yeah.
It's like we're putting in an order to the universe, getting excited about it, and then just trusting it'll show up, even if it doesn't look exactly how we pictured it.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It highlights this important idea that letting go doesn't mean we just sit back and do nothing.
Right.
It's more about not needing to control every tiny detail. It's about trusting that the universe is kind of working with us.
Okay, but how do you actually do that? Saying let go is one thing, but really feeling that trust and surrender, that's a whole different story.
It definitely takes practice.
Yeah.
And it can feel kind of weird at first, especially if we're used to pushing and striving for everything. One way to build that trust is to notice the little things that just seem to work out, the coincidences and those moments when things fall into place. So those times when things just effortlessly work out or when unexpected help shows up.
Exactly.
Okay.
A lot of times we're so busy focusing on what's not working that we miss those little hints that the universe is actually on our side. And by starting to see those hints, we start to feel that, okay, maybe I am being guided and supported, even when we can't see the whole picture.
That makes sense. It's like when you're looking for a certain car, and then suddenly you see that car everywhere you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost as if by putting our attention on something, we're also opening ourselves up to receiving it. And that's where this idea of following your highest excitement comes in. Bashar says that when we constantly choose the options that feel the most exciting, the most joyful, we're naturally aligning with the path of least resistance.
So it's not about forcing ourselves to do what we think we should do, but more about letting ourselves be led by what feels good and exciting right now.
Exactly. And the cool thing about it is you don't need all the answers or have everything figured out ahead of time. You can just trust your gut feeling and let what sparks your joy lead the way.
It's almost like playing a game of hot and cold, right?
Yeah.
The more excited we feel about something, the hotter we are, and that means we're getting closer to our true path.
That's a perfect way to think about it. And the more we do this, the easier it gets to tell the difference between the choices that are truly coming from our passion and the ones that are coming from fear or a sense of obligation.
Okay, so let's say we're starting to figure out our passions, and we're choosing from a place of excitement instead of fear. Where does letting go of goals fit into this? Wouldn't that make it harder to actually achieve anything specific?
Not necessarily. Remember, letting go of goals doesn't mean giving up on what you want. It's about surrendering that need to control every single step and trusting that there might be a smarter, more creative way to get there.
So we can still set intentions and picture our goals,
Yeah,
but we loosen our grip on how and when they'll happen.
exactly. We stay open to the possibility that the path might look different than we imagined. And we trust that whatever happens will be for our highest good.
That can be a hard thing to grasp, especially when we're told to plan and be in control. I can think of times when I was so fixated on a specific goal that I missed out on other opportunities or experiences that might have been even better.
Yeah, it happens a lot. We get so stuck on figuring out the how that we lose sight of the why, the real reason behind what we want.
So how do we shift out of that mindset? It can feel pretty ingrained, especially if we've always believed that we need to have everything under control?
Well, one powerful way to shift is to focus on the present moment. When you bring your attention to right now, to what's happening in this moment, you connect to a deeper sense of peace and trust.
So instead of worrying about the future or dwelling on the past, we just pay attention to what's happening right here, right now.
Exactly. And it might seem simple, but it's really powerful. When we're fully present, we're more open to guidance and intuition. We're also more likely to notice those synchronicities and signs we were talking about before.
Right. When we're constantly distracted by thoughts about the past or future, it's easy to miss those little nudges from the universe. But when we're present, we're more open to receiving those messages.
And that being open and receptive is key to aligning with our true path and letting the universe help us achieve our goals.
It sounds like this whole process is about changing our mindset from one of scarcity and control to one of abundance and trust.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're not alone in this. We're always guided, supported, and loved. And when we open ourselves to that, we tack into this limitless source of wisdom and power.
This has been so fascinating, seriously. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of Bashar's teachings, but it's already given me so much to think about.
Me too. It reminds us that we have more power than we realize to create a life that truly reflects who we are and is full of joy, meaning, and purpose.
So for our listeners who are feeling inspired to actually use these ideas, what would be a good starting point? What's one small step they can take today to move towards following their highest excitement and trusting the universe?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing is to start paying attention to how you feel. Throughout the day, notice those moments when you feel joy, excitement, or inspiration.
Okay.
Ask yourself, what activities or interactions bring me those feelings?
Right.
What am I naturally drawn to?
So it's about becoming more aware of our own internal compass and trusting those feelings of excitement and joy to guide us.
Exactly. And then once you're aware of those feelings, you can start making choices that align with them.
So if you have a choice between working late and going for a walk in nature, and the walk feels more exciting, you choose the walk.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't need to be a huge change. It could be as simple as choosing to read a book instead of scrolling through social media, or listening to music that lifts you up instead of watching the news.
It's those little conscious choices that bring more joy and excitement into our everyday lives.
Exactly. And as we practice this, we naturally start to attract more of what we desire. It's like we're sending this message to the universe. We're ready to align with our true path and let the magic happen.
I love that. This has been such an insightful conversation.
Yeah, it has.
I don't know about you, but I'm definitely inspired to use some of these ideas in my own life.
Me too. It's a good reminder that life is about so much more than just checking things off a to-do list.
Absolutely.
It's about enjoying the journey, trusting the process, and allowing ourselves to be amazed by all the possibilities that open up when we align with our passions and let go of needing to control everything.
Before we move on, I want to leave our listeners with one last question to think about.
Okay.
If you truly believe that you get what you need, what are you willing to start letting into your life? What are you ready to surrender to?
That's a powerful question to consider. And as you think about it, remember that the universe is always working with you, guiding you towards what's best for you.
Welcome back, everyone. That last part really got me thinking. It's amazing how easy it is to get caught up in figuring out how to reach our goals, that we forget to just enjoy the journey, following what excites us.
Yeah, for sure. And like we were saying, it's not about ditching goals altogether. Bashar's point is more about realizing that we can set intentions, visualize what we want, but then we got to let go of needing to know exactly how it'll happen.
So it's like trusting that there's something bigger at work, something that can make things happen in ways we wouldn't even think of.
Right. And think about it. How often have you gotten exactly what you thought you wanted, only to find out it wasn't really what you needed? What if, by letting go of the how, we actually open ourselves up to something even better, something that really fits with our purpose?
That's making me rethink some of my own goals, for
Yeah.
sure. But it also makes me wonder, how do we stay motivated if we're not actively chasing after something? Won't we just end up drifting and not achieving anything?
That's where the magic of following your highest excitement comes in, like we talked about. It's not about being passive. It's about choosing in each moment the option that feels the most aligned with your passion, even if it's just a little bit more exciting than the other option.
So we're constantly checking our compass, making little adjustments throughout the day based on what feels the most joyful and aligned.
Exactly. And the more we do that, the more momentum we build. It's like tuning into a frequency of joy and abundance. And as we do that, we naturally attract more experiences that match that energy.
So instead of forcing ourselves to do things we think we should be doing, we're listening to a deeper wisdom, that sense of what really lights us up inside.
Right. And even if we make a choice that doesn't turn out so great, we can always adjust. There are no mistakes, really, just chances to learn and grow. And remember, Bashar says we always get what we need, even if it's not what we initially thought we wanted.
That's actually really comforting, especially for someone like me who tends to overthink everything. It takes the pressure off knowing that even if I mess up, the universe is still looking out for me.
Absolutely. It's about letting go of that fear of making the wrong choice.
Yeah.
And trusting that we're always being guided toward what's best for us, even if the path isn't always straight.
So for our listener who's maybe feeling a little overwhelmed with all of this, they're curious about Bashar's ideas, but not sure where to begin. What would you suggest as a starting point?
I'd say start small. Pick one area of your life where you feel stuck or uninspired. It could be your job, your relationships, or even just your daily routine.
Okay.
And then ask yourself, what's one little change I could make that would feel more exciting, more aligned with what I really want?
So instead of trying to change their entire life, they could try one small shift, like taking a different route to work, exploring a new hobby, or having that tough conversation they've been putting off.
Exactly. It's about taking action, even a small step, to move away from that feeling of being stuck and towards something that feels more true to themselves.
And as they do that, to also pay attention to how they feel, noticing those moments of joy, flow, and excitement, trusting those as signs that they're heading in the right direction.
Yes. It's all about becoming more aware of our inner compass, trusting our intuition, and letting go of the need to have every detail planned out.
This has been such an amazing and thought-provoking conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new way of looking at not just my goals, but my entire life.
Me too. It's a good reminder that life is about so much more than just checking things off a list. It's about enjoying the journey, trusting the process, and being open to all the amazing possibilities that come when we follow our passion and let go of needing to control everything.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Bashar. We hope you've learned some valuable insights and feel inspired to use these ideas in your own life.
And remember, the universe is always on your side. So go out there, follow your excitement, and see where it leads you.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.